Before I left for Europe to film my spaghetti western, I worked on a series of commercials for Nestle's Quick. In those ads, I played a spoof version of James Bond, a character called Captain Quick. A few years later, in 1967, Adam West wore his Batman costume for what was supposed to be the last time. It was for a secret project filmed in London, and after it was completed, the footage disappeared. For more than 50 years, nobody in America had ever seen it. Not even the biggest Batman collectors knew it existed. The film was locked away in British archives and completely forgotten. Then in 2018, while researchers were searching through lost television history, someone stumbled upon it. The rediscovered footage revealed Adam West saying something in a missing scene that shocked everyone who saw it. The find proved that even superheroes as famous as Batman could still hide dark secrets. Years earlier in 1964, Ed Graham Productions got the rights to create a Batman TV series. The plan at that time was very different from the Batman most people know today. They wanted to make a straightforward Saturday morning adventure show for kids, similar to the Adventures of Superman that CBS had broadcast during the 1950s. Their first choice to play Batman was Mike Henry, an NFL linebacker who would later be known for starring as Tarzan. By 1965, CBS was close to signing the deal, but after weeks of negotiations, the talks fell apart. The network never moved forward with the project. If that version of Batman had gone on air, it would likely have been a watered-down children's program that might have weakened the character's popularity and changed his future in pop culture. When Henry left the project to take the role of Tarzan, the whole plan collapsed just before filming was supposed to begin. While it looked like a failure at the time, it actually opened the door for a very different Batman, the prime-time version that would later capture the world's attention. Meanwhile, something unexpected was happening in Chicago at Hugh Hefner's Playboy Mansion. In 1965, Hefner organized screenings of all 15 chapters of the old 1943 Batman movie serial. At first, it seemed like a simple nostalgic throwback for his guests, who were a mix of celebrities and socialites. But the screenings turned into a cultural event. The crowd got deeply involved, cheering for the heroes, booing the villains, and even dressing up for the occasion. The New York Times and other media outlets covered the wild reactions. Suddenly, Batman wasn't just a forgotten relic. He had become popular again. Hefner's screenings showed Hollywood that people could enjoy Batman's campy, exaggerated style as entertainment. Without that event, Batman might have stayed in the shadows instead of being revived. Columbia Pictures quickly noticed the buzz. In 1965, they edited the 1943 serial into a single 4.5-hour movie called An Evening with Batman and Robin. It premiered at the Playboy Theater in Chicago and then spread to art house cinemas and college towns across the country. The response was overwhelming. Fans showed up in costume, theaters sold out midnight screenings, and concessions broke records. In some places, theaters even split the event into 2 days, showing 7 chapters on Saturday and 8 on Sunday. Reports described lines stretching down the block as audiences eagerly waited to get inside. The surprising success stunned Columbia executives, and it caught the attention of ABC. The message was clear. Batman wasn't just back, he was capable of attracting massive audiences. The huge success of An Evening with Batman and Robin and the headlines it generated convinced ABC that a live-action Batman series could actually work. Around this time, a young executive named Yale Yudof stepped into the spotlight. Yudof had been a Batman fan since childhood, and after seeing the packed screenings in Chicago, he was convinced that Batman belonged on television. He pushed the idea non-stop, bringing it up at every meeting and even shouting, "We ought to do Batman," at his bosses. At first, people laughed him off, but he wouldn't let it go. Eventually, he wrote a full proposal for a stylish Batman show that mixed the exciting action of James Bond with the coolness of the man from UNCLE. His passion started to spread. Some ABC executives even admitted later that they began reading Batman comics in secret, hiding them inside business magazines while traveling. Yudof's persistence played a big role in finally convincing ABC to take the risk. When producer William Dozier was hired in 1966, he made a surprising admission. He had never read a comic book before. Once he did, he found Batman's stories so strange and over the top that he thought they couldn't possibly be taken seriously. With things like shark-repellent bat spray and villains challenging Batman to surfing contests, Dozier decided the best way forward was not a serious drama but a campy parody. He leaned into the absurdity, building a show filled with bright colors, exaggerated villains, and comic-style pow and BM effects flashing across the screen. At the time, American culture was already leaning into satire and pop art, with artists like Andy Warhol and Roy Lichtenstein poking fun at consumer culture. Dozier tapped right into that trend, and it worked. When Batman premiered in January 1966, it instantly became a cultural phenomenon. Not everyone supported Dozier's vision, though. Eric Ambler, a famous spy novelist, had originally been hired to write a feature-length Batman movie that would launch the series. But as soon as he learned the character was being turned into a comedy, he quit. Known for serious thrillers, Ambler wanted no part of camp. His exit showed just how unusual and risky Dozier's approach was. Casting was another crucial decision. In 1965, 2 test films were made. One featured Adam West and Burt Ward, and the other starred Lyle Waggoner as Batman and Peter Diel as Robin. Waggoner was the safer bet. He was already known in Hollywood and looked the part. West, on the other hand, was almost unknown. But when the footage was compared side by side, West and Ward had exactly the quirky energy Dozier wanted. They weren't just playing Batman and Robin, they were winking at the audience while still staying in character. That balance of camp and sincerity was exactly what the show needed. Adam West's path to Batman was especially unlikely. Producers had noticed him in a Nestle Quick commercial where he played Captain Quick, a parody of James Bond. His straight-faced delivery of absurd lines stood out, and Dozier knew right away that West could make Batman funny without losing his seriousness. West officially signed his contract on September 21, 1965, beating out bigger names simply because he could nail that unique tone. Burt Ward was cast as Robin in 1966. Though he was actually 20 years old, he looked much younger and fit perfectly into the role of Batman's teenage sidekick. Ward insisted on doing most of his own stunts, but that came at a cost. He ended up in the hospital 4 times in just his first 5 days of filming. Despite the injuries, his athleticism and enthusiasm made Robin believable, and fans accepted him as a real high school-aged hero. Supporting them were experienced stage actors who gave the show a sense of credibility. Alan Napier, born in 1903 and a relative of former British Prime Minister Neville Chamberlain, played Alfred, Batman's loyal butler. Trained at the Royal Academy of Dramatic Art, Napier had decades of stage and film experience by the time he joined the cast. Neil Hamilton, who played Commissioner Gordon, brought gravitas from his long career in silent films and classic Hollywood. Their presence balanced out the over-the-top villains and added a layer of seriousness that kept the show from tipping into pure silliness. But Batman's popularity had not always been so secure. Back in 1954, psychiatrist Frederick Wortham had published his controversial book Seduction of the Innocent. In it, he made claims that shocked parents across America. Wortham argued that Batman comics carried hidden homosexual themes. He pointed out that Bruce Wayne and Dick Grayson lived together in Wayne Manor with no women around and were sometimes shown lounging together. He even claimed that young boys told him they wished they could live with Batman. Wortham went so far as to call the comics a wish dream of 2 homosexuals living together. His arguments sparked outrage, led to Senate hearings on comic books, and nearly destroyed the industry. Batman, in particular, was suddenly viewed with suspicion, which made the success of the 1960s TV series even more remarkable. Frederick Wortham's claims didn't vanish after his book. They stuck around through the 1950s and fed into the larger climate of fear known as the Lavender Scare, when anything connected to homosexuality was seen as a threat. Batman and Robin, unfortunately, became part of that discussion. Even by the 1960s, when the Batman TV show was at its peak, producers and actors were still haunted by the rumors. They worried that even the smallest detail in a costume, a line of dialogue, or a plot might bring those old accusations back into the spotlight. The series became one of the most carefully watched shows on television, with every choice analyzed for hidden social meanings. The whispers finally spilled into the open in 1967 when the magazine TV radio album ran a short article called The Whisper Campaign Against Batman and Robin. The piece was only 2 pages long, surrounded by glossy photos of the caped crusaders, but its impact was huge. For the first time, a mainstream publication acknowledged the rumors about Batman and Robin's relationship, and even about Adam West and Burt Ward themselves. While the article denied the claims, it made sly comparisons that kept the gossip alive. One line stood out. Though both of them must have heard the whispers like Liberace some years ago, they are doubtless laughing all the way to the bank. This reference to Liberace was not accidental. The flamboyant pianist had famously sued newspapers for suggesting he was gay in the 1950s and once quipped that he cried all the way to the bank after winning his lawsuit. By making the comparison, the article fueled the gossip while pretending to dismiss it, giving readers just enough to connect the dots themselves. For the show's producers, though, this was no laughing matter. Sponsors and networks feared that if Batman carried a reputation of being linked to homosexuality, it could scare off family audiences and advertisers. NBC acted quickly. They pushed writers to rewrite scenes that made Batman's attraction to women more obvious. One heavy-handed example came when Batman told Robin that his interest in pretty villainesses was caused by the first oncoming thrusts of manhood. It was awkward and out of place in the campy style of the show, but it was deliberate. From that point on, scripts regularly inserted moments where Batman showed interest in women, an effort to assure viewers and sponsors that the character was firmly heterosexual. The network didn't stop with the scripts. They launched a full publicity campaign to highlight the masculinity of Adam West and Burt Ward. Magazines and press kits were filled with photos of the actors practicing karate, talking about their marriages, playing sports, or showing off their children. Even their personal hobbies were carefully framed to project an image of toughness and traditional masculinity. It was clear that the studio was scrambling to control the narrative. In the 1960s, a single rumor could destroy reputations and sink a hit show. Meanwhile, Batman was facing bigger problems than whispers. The show debuted in January 1966 as an overnight sensation. By February, it was pulling in 14 million households and reaching an incredible 42% of the viewing audience. But the excitement didn't last. By March, ratings were already slipping, and ABC executives began using the phrase Batman fatigue to describe the situation. The campy formula that had felt fresh at first now seemed repetitive. By the summer of 1966, the decline had become dramatic. Just months earlier, Batman had dominated pop culture, but now ratings were sinking fast. An Associated Press article that August confirmed the worst. Batman was no longer even in the top-ranked shows. Merchandise sales were still strong, but the audience had vanished. The much-hyped Batman movie, released the same year, was supposed to revive interest. The studio poured money into promotion, hoping for a blockbuster. Instead, it earned only $1.7 million at the box office. While it performed slightly above average in some cities, it fell far short of expectations and didn't make a profit. The second season launched in September 1966 with hopes of winning back viewers, but the numbers told a grim story. The show slipped to 34th place overall, with some episodes dropping into the 40s. Even new villains like Catwoman couldn't bring back the magic. Cast members grew nervous that cancellation was near. Amid this decline, one of the strangest pieces of Batman history emerged. Not from American television, but from London in May 1967. Adam West, still in his Batman costume, filmed a special road safety message for British children. For more than 50 years, the footage disappeared, locked away in archives. Not even the most devoted Batman collectors in the US knew it existed. It was only rediscovered decades later, giving fans a glimpse at a forgotten chapter of the Caped Crusaders' history. The lost Batman road safety film finally resurfaced in 2018 when the archive group Kaleidoscope uncovered it during a campaign to recover the UK's top 100 missing television clips. For more than 50 years, fans assumed it was gone forever, since it had never been shown outside Britain. When people finally got to see it, it felt like stumbling across a time capsule, a rare mix of superhero history and British cultural memory. In the short film, Adam West, fully dressed as Batman, teaches children the curb drill, Britain's version of road safety rules. On a quiet street, he explains the dangers of crossing the road and demonstrates the correct steps. Stop at the curb, look right, look left, look right again, and cross only when it's safe. He delivers the lesson with the same calm seriousness he used when fighting Gotham's villains, blending Batman's American superhero image with British public safety in a way no one else ever had. The rediscovery reminded people that even the most famous franchises can lose pieces of their history. The first public screening took place on April 14, 2018, at Birmingham City University. It kicked off Kaleidoscope's nationwide search for 100 missing TV treasures, including lost episodes of Doctor Who and The Avengers. Fans and television historians were stunned, not just at seeing Batman deliver a forgotten safety message, but at how much important media might still be hidden away in archives and private collections, waiting to be found. But the missing Batman safety film wasn't the only mystery from the 1960s show. Another puzzling case involved singer Leslie Gore, who appeared as Catwoman's sidekick, Pussycat, in a two-part episode called Scat, Darn Catwoman, which aired in January 1967. During the story, she performed two songs, California Nights and Maybe Now. While California Nights stayed in every rerun, Maybe Now mysteriously vanished from American broadcasts. The song, which Gore co-wrote with her brother Michael, was released as the B-side of her single Treat Me Like a Lady. Some international versions of the episode still included it, but American reruns and cable airings like MeTV cut the number out entirely. To this day, no one knows why, turning the missing performance into one of the show's strangest unsolved mysteries. There were other odd edits too. In one version of the show, Batman takes Commissioner Gordon into the Batcave. To protect his secret, Alfred uses bat sleep spray to knock Gordon out so he won't remember seeing Batman and Robin's identities. But in some syndications, that scene was trimmed or cut entirely, as producers worried about showing a police commissioner being drugged, even in a light-hearted, campy context. Other edits downplayed Gordon's visit to the Batcave altogether. These changes showed how carefully producers monitored content in a show aimed at millions of children. Not all unusual Batman stories came from the TV screen. In the late 1960s, Adam West himself became infamous after a wild party in Aspen, Colorado. The situation got so out of hand that he was reportedly banned from the town for 15 years. Later, West admitted, "Liquor, yes. Women, yes. Police, yes," when asked about the incident. Some reports said the ban came from noise complaints and property damage, though no criminal charges were ever filed. Exactly 15 years later, the city confirmed in writing that he could return. The event gave West a reputation as more than just the straight-laced superhero people saw on TV. Behind the scenes, West and Burt also gained fame for their nightlife. Ward admitted in his autobiography that they often found themselves in surprising encounters with fans, even while still dressed as Batman and Robin. His confessions shocked many readers and embarrassed the show's producers, but they also cemented the idea that the actors lived lives just as colorful off-screen as they did on Gotham streets. He once even claimed that he had to leap from a motel window into the mud to escape a jealous husband. Whether every story was true or exaggerated, these tales added to the rumors swirling around Adam West and Burt Ward. West often argued that Ward stretched the truth in his accounts, but the gossip still caused tension between them and worried ABC executives. The network feared that too much talk about wild off-camera behavior could damage Batman's carefully built image as a family-friendly show. Some of their co-stars added to the series' colorful legend as well. Cesar Romero, who played the Joker, became famous for refusing to shave his mustache. Rather than force him, the makeup team simply painted over it with thick white makeup for all 120 episodes and the 1966 film. Even today, you can still see the faint outline of his mustache in close-ups, turning Romero's version of the Joker into one of the most unforgettable quirks in Batman history. Behind the cameras, the cast often lived just as wildly as their on-screen characters. West and Ward both admitted that success brought endless parties, late nights, and plenty of alcohol. Sometimes the fun lasted until dawn, leaving actors exhausted during filming. Makeup crews had to work extra hard to make them look fresh on camera. Reports from the time confirm that the off-screen chaos sometimes rivaled the over-the-top action that viewers saw each week on television. Even the writers added to the show's mythology. In 1966, legendary science fiction author Harlan Ellison was invited to pitch a Batman episode.